Let's start with the first question itself. It is quite a usual question, expected, though they have asked the more, the implied aspect of that. So first question is, the politics administration dichotomy debate is still alive, right? And that's correct. See, when you go to NPA 2, so when NPA 2, we end with the NPA 2, one of the prime aspects of NPA 2 was that is public administration still relevant when the market and the neoliberal mechanisms have emerged, right? So it is obvious that public administration is considered to be one of the important academic disciplines and the important system that governs the society, right? So this idea that dichotomy or the identity of public administration is still relevant, right? Somewhere gets reinforced after the NPA 2. Also, right, NPA 1 itself, though discarded the dichotomy, it highlighted the importance of public administration. So there are some paradoxes here, right? But let's say, how do we write? Obviously, when we think of the idea of dichotomy, it is a 10-mark question. So you have to obviously focus first on defining what dichotomy is. So Wilson's idea of dichotomy was based on the very belief that if administration is made autonomous, it is made free from the influence of the politics, then it can perform better, it can be more efficient in nature. Also, Wilson's core idea that every detailed and systematic execution of law is public administration, it itself emphasizes that what is the role of administration is executive, right? So you can start with the basic idea, and then you can bring the perspectives that what exactly the dichotomy means. So there are 2-3 aspects. One, dichotomy, first idea of dichotomy, politics administration dichotomy is that there are two separate spheres of study, right? And they cannot be, or administration cannot be studied as just a sub part of the political science, as it was presumed. Second, as a system, as an institution, as an organization, they are also separate because one is elected, another is recruited, right? The different parameters are used for political process and different parameters are used for the civil services. So this is second aspect. The third aspect is the functional domain. Functional domain, though overlaps to an extent, but still there is clarity that what a secretary would do, what a department would do, or what an administrative system will do, and what a political system will do. So that also is very clear here. That is a third aspect, right? Functional separation. And then obviously comes the intellectual separation. What is the intellectual separation? That dichotomy somewhere has to be visualized or should be used to visualize the substantial understanding and study of PubAd and the substantial understanding and study of politics. So academic without intellectual separation is not possible. That means when we treat them as two separate spheres of thinking and logic and understanding, then only we can visualize them as dichotomy. So see, a basic idea to bring the perspectives of dichotomy first, and then obviously we can bring the logic that yes, in spite of the criticisms, it was believed that Wilson's idea was naive, it was immature. And why it was immature or naive? Because later on public policy perspective comes, later on Simon's criticism comes, then the criticism by, for example, Riggs or by Robert Dahl, John Goss, and many of the comparative scholars, right? Like, for example, Dahl's criticism comes from his writings on the science of administration, 3 problems. So these are the perspectives which criticize the dichotomy, right? But in spite of that, when we think of bureaucracy, Weberian model, or when we think of the ethics in public services today, when we talk about the idea of digital era governance, or when we bring the perspective of new public management, or any of these ideas which emerge, right, either post-globalization or you can say just in the era of 1940s and 50s, even the classical era and even after that. So everywhere the basic idea has been that administrative system is or must follow certain set of values, certain set of premises, like neutrality. Neutrality obviously highlights the dichotomy. A, political orientation. dichotomy, right? Collective responsibility, though, with the idea of anonymity, again, dichotomy. Later on, NPM, dichotomy, right? Neo-Weberian state, dichotomy. So there are various models, right, which even today, even NPA3, the dichotomy as an idea did not die down. So even today also, when you think of the administration, right, as a system or as a set of functions or as an academic area of study, you always tend to distinguish it from the political system. Today also, whenever we talk about ethics in governance or efficiency of administration, we always believe that it is only possible when there is a separation between the politics and administration, right? Various second ARC recommendations in India, right? Other reforms commissions, they have always recommended that we need to depoliticize administration, right? We need to make administration more neutral, or we need to make it committed to public interest and not to the political system. Political ideology must not influence administrative decisions, right? Even the civil services conduct rules, right, or for that matter, the code of ethics as desired for the civil servants, all of them demand somewhere are based on the assumptions of dichotomy. Fine. So if you had used these ideas, you could have written the answer well, and that was the answer which was needed.